Hey, you're listening to the Intentional Documentary podcast. So glad to have you. Around here, I'm gushing over the stories behind the pictures that we freaking love of our own lives. You know, the ones we hold as high value and iconic, because this is where photography meets real life. I'm your host, Marie Moss, and I believe that the best way to approach your photography is through your lens, your way. Through insightful conversations with photographers, I'll explore preserving life with your camera and using what lights you up to grow your brand. Let's get started. Hello? Anybody there? Good. I freaking missed you. Hey, it's Marie Moss, the host of the Intentional Documentary show that I hope you haven't forgotten. It's been almost an entire year and a half since I've recorded an episode for you, but I wanted to come on and do a really short episode. I wouldn't even really call this an episode, but I want to update you on what's been going on and also tell you what's ahead, starting with this podcast. It's coming back with new episodes starting this September, probably the middle of September 2021. And I have freaking missed you so much. I have missed this microphone. I have missed speaking to you. I've missed mapping out episodes to try to stretch your mindset, help you to think and self-reflect and notice your stories. I've missed the conversations that come from these episodes, whether it's with listeners like you or with the guests that I've had on here. And it's coming back, my friend. So deep breath. I'm like talking a mile a minute because I'm so excited right now. I've been wanting to start the show back up for some time, but I've had a hard time navigating the direction of the show because it started off as a show for photographers, for documentary photographers more specifically. So there will be some changes with this show, and I'll get into that in a minute. But first, I want to do a little check-in with you. How the heck have you been? I mean, it's been, like I said, almost a year and a half. And it's crazy. I stopped recording within 6 weeks before the pandemic started. And here we are. I don't know where you're at in the world, so I'm sure where you're at might look different than where I'm at. But here in South Carolina, in the United States, we truly are feeling this sense of quote unquote normalcy, I guess. So much has happened though from then until now that I kind of have whiplash. Not really. It's actually been pretty wonderful for me. I've been really, really fortunate. So many people have been affected by loss and fear, and I'm really privileged to say that I really haven't. I mean, I have had members of my family get COVID, but I haven't lost anybody. And because we live on this little mountain and it's spacious, we haven't felt like we've had to bubble wrap our lives that much. So that part, like being in quote unquote lockdown, didn't really affect us. The biggest change for me and my family is that I decided to pull my kids out of school and go full force with unschooling them, which we can talk about another time. I'm not trying to turn this back around on me. I really want to check in with you. I really wish that I could actually hear your response right now. So I'm going to invite you to send me a DM or something. Email me, marie@dangerouslygoodstories.com, or on Instagram at either Fearless and Framed or Dangerously Good Stories. Shoot me a DM. Let me know how you have been doing. Truly, I'd love to hear from you. So let me preview what's ahead. There's a lot going on here in the US. We are at the top of our summer. So I've got this whole season, this whole summer mapped out, kind of counting down the new episodes coming in September. And there are ways that you can win various prizes that I think will also be really fun. It's simple, for one thing. Number one, the podcast is getting a bit of a rebrand. It's not really going to change that much as far as the type of content, but this podcast started for photographers. my listeners, and especially the people that I help inside of my program, are not all photographers. I have been working with designers. I've been working with fashion stylists. I've been working with teachers, like a really wide spectrum of different types of people. And I think rather than being business owners or not business owners or creatives, not creatives, and different titles like that, I think the common denominator of my audience moving forward really consists of people who prioritize meaningfulness, whether it is in the photos that you make of your life, your family, or your clients if you're in business, or meaningfulness with the way that you show up if you are in business, with the stories that you tell in that aspect, or creating more meaningfulness in your life. And we have all these conversations around how to use your personal stories to achieve exactly that. I know that I could go way deep on a rabbit hole of meaningfulness and stories and the benefits and blah blah blah, but that's not the point. The point is that intentional documentary will be no longer. It will be the name Dangerously Good Stories, which really makes sense because that's really the heart of this show, and it kind of has been all along. I mean, hasn't it? I think it has. So it's really, we're going to keep cultivating the conversation around what are meaningful stories. We will have different guests on so we can keep dissecting what is meaningful to that person, because I believe that stories spark stories. So when you listen to other people's stories, it's an opportunity for you to self-reflect. So of course, I am a business owner, so I know that I'm still going to have episodes that have to do with marketing and business. I'm sure we'll talk about documenting, but there's going to be more. The funny thing is, as I say, there's going to be more, there's also going to be less. I think one of my weaknesses with this podcast was trying to keep up with the pace in which I was outputting these shows, which really was, I tried to publish them weekly. I think we're near 80 episodes. I don't remember exactly where we stopped, but weekly for almost 80 weeks in a row, like that was a lot. So I'm thinking, because I know you're busy, I'm busy too, I'm thinking that what I'm going to do is have 2 full episodes each month, meaning these episodes will probably be a solid 30 minutes, maybe even up to an hour, probably 30 to an hour when I have a guest on, because it's just, we talk so much. But then I'm thinking in between, I will have super short episodes that give you some story prompts, some activities you can do with your stories, and then even just share little short stories with examples of how people used those stories. It could be the tiniest stories of your life. One that's coming to mind right now for me is a story about we called them fruit roll-ups, but other people I've heard call them fruit leather. It's applesauce or pureed fruit, dehydrated and rolled up, so they are much like a dehydrated roll-up. My grandpa used to make these for us, and I have recently started making them for my family. There's a lot more to it that I'm not really going to get into at this moment, but that's what I mean, like just these tiny little stories that you are pulling from to create more meaningfulness in your life today. It could be from the story about something that you were hurt from or still really angry with, and somehow you have moved from anger and pain to compassion and peace. Maybe you went out and you documented something that's wildly meaningful to you. So it's little tiny stories, and how we are using them to infuse our lives with more meaningfulness is the kind of stuff that I want to publish. And of course, business owners this all applies to you too. And you might be thinking, okay, well, I don't know. I'm really here for the marketing advice. All of these stories are exactly the kinds of stories that your audience needs to hear about you, so that when they see you in your role, whatever that is. And also they see you as a whole person, and they see this side of your heart that makes them trust you. And I'm not saying that in like a shady, manipulative way. You know, we tend to feel more comfortable with people that we feel comfortable with. So these stories add a layer of authenticity in your brand that is just, it's so powerful, and it's one of your biggest assets as a brand owner. So to recap everything I just said, middle of September, there will be new episodes. The podcast channel itself should stay the same. I'm just going to go into the iTunes and Apple stuff and change the name. So I don't think anything there will change. I will continue hosting these episodes in Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and I'm going to actually set up on Spotify, which is something we've never published on before. Intentional Documentary will be no longer. The show will continue on under the new name, Dangerously Good Stories. So the next thing is what we're going to do over this next season, this summer. There's some opportunities for you. First, I'm hosting a listener, what is it called? It's actually, because the show is still Intentional Documentary, technically, I'm hosting the Intentional Documentary show Listening Adventure. So because it has been so long since we've talked through this platform, we're going to revisit some of our older episodes. Maybe you've listened to them already, maybe you have not. I'm going to invite you to re-listen or listen to these for the first time. And I created a tracker for you. There's only 4 episodes, and the goal is to listen to 1 episode per week. I've pre-selected the episodes because, in addition to inviting you to re-listen or listen for the first time, I'm going to meet you every Thursday on my Instagram at Dangerously Good Stories to talk a little bit more about that episode, so I can expand on the topics, I can answer questions, or just say hey. Honestly, that's what I miss the most, just chit-chatting with my listeners. To get the tracker, all you have to do is go to dangerouslygoodstories.com/adventure. So I'll put all these notes in the show notes in case you're driving or something like that. But you don't have to opt in. I'm not trying to get you onto my newsletter with this. Like, this is really just something for fun for us to do over this next season while we're counting down the days until the new episodes come out. So once you go to that URL, you'll see the tracker. There's all the instructions on there, but it's really simple. All you got to do, listen to the episode for that week, write your key takeaway down on the sheet, share that sheet and tag me so I can see that you've participated. Each week I will be giving away a prize. The first week, I think it's 5 people will get my program, The Life Brand Method. And each week, the more you stay with me, the prizes get bigger and bigger. So I think it should be fun. Really simple, really light. And hopefully it brings you back to a sense of what matters to you, because I think we all need that reminder once in a while. Again, go to dangerouslygoodstories.com/adventure. Then the second thing that I'm going to do, and I'll probably host this in August, but I'll open up like an official invitation sometime in July. But if you were a member of the Goodbye Posing Guide Facebook group, how fun would it be to have a reunion? It's been, 2 years since I closed that group now? So I thought that we could, maybe meet on Zoom so we could have everybody on there and we could go around and just check in with each other and see, what you've been up to. I think it could just be a fun little pre-celebration for the new podcast name and the new episodes that are coming in September. So, yeah, the podcast name is going to change new episodes coming in September. I'm going to add Spotify. There will be less episodes, but I think that that's actually a really good thing. So you're not getting overloaded with too much information. That way too, we get to infuse this with a bit more implementation stuff where you can take some activities and prompts and run with them and make them your own. The last thing is what's ahead this season, which is the podcast listening adventure at dangerouslygoodstories.com/adventure, which is your chance to win 4 different prizes over 4 very easy and I'm hoping cathartic weeks. And then the reunion for the Goodbye Posing Guide group. So that's really it. On the personal front, I think I already said at the beginning that we've pulled the kids out of school and have been unschooling them for over a year now, and we really haven't looked back. I'll probably do a whole episode on this topic. I would say that's actually one of the changes I'm really excited about for this podcast is for like Dangerously Good Stories. The way that I came up with that name is it's like I feel like there's this river or this grain that life flows. And when you start really paying attention to your stories, the really good ones, the ones that are the most meaningful and like give you some sense of identity and purpose, those stories, when you really see them for what they are and you start using them to cultivate more meaningfulness and more purpose and more self-trust to start really living a self-led life, they get dangerous to your old lifestyle, if you will. And your lifestyle right now it could be amazing, but these stories are dangerous to this, like, say this is like you version 2.0. The Dangerously Good Stories takes you to you 4.0, if that makes sense. So it's something that I feel like we need to talk about, not just what's meaningful, but I guess now I'm like totally going in circles, but like unschooling. This is something that's on my heart. ADHD. I've shared a little bit on the show before about my son and ADHD. One of the things that's actually around the corner in about a month from now, I am being tested for ADHD by my son's doctors. It's something that has been coming up lately. I didn't really realize how different ADHD can look in adult women, hyperactive ADHD that is. I've always thought, well, I don't run around like Levi does, and I'm not super forgetful. I'm really sharp when it comes to like remembering appointments and things like that. But once I started to learn about how a hyperactivity can present itself inside of adult women, I'm like, oh my gosh, I think I've had this my whole life. We will see. I really want to draw people in who are using stories in their life to create this lifestyle that makes them feel alive and again is infused with meaningfulness. So I think that we're going to have some really interesting guests and conversations on here that will be a little bit different than before. The last thing that I'll share is next year, 2022, I am with my kids taking off and attempting to through-ish hike the Appalachian Trail. I mean, I'm bringing 2 kids, so we'll see how far we get, but it is something we have been preparing for, and now we're counting down, and it'll be less than a year until we leave. So, yeah, that's what's going on with me. Remember to get the tracker for the Listening Adventure Challenge. Go to dangerouslygoodstories.com/adventure. You do not have to opt in. It should just pop right up and then you'll be able to save it to your computer. For the show notes for this episode, visit dangerouslygoodstories.com/2021 update. That's dangerouslygoodstories.com/2021 UPDATE. And that's all for now. I hope to see you in the listening adventure, in my DMs, in my inbox or at the Goodbye Posing Guide reunion. More details on that coming out soon enough. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.